Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show. This is Doug Cunnington, and in this episode, I am talking to my good friend, Ron Stefanski. Ron is from the 1 Hour Professor, which is his blog, and I did a quick video a couple weeks ago over on the YouTube side, and I was sharing the fact that Ron has been publishing his income reports since he started working online in late 2014. And those reports are like super detailed. And the really cool part is at the beginning, he actually lost a decent amount of money. All right. So in 2014, he wasn't showing any profit. In fact, he lost nearly $1,500, but he stuck with it, of course. And again, the super cool part is the income reports are very detailed. So in 2015, he made a little under $6,000. In 2016, he jumped by a huge margin up to about $34,000. In 2017, he made about $70,000. 2018, $157,000. And here in 2019, like through the first 4 months, so January through April, he's made over $67,000. So he's on track for just under $200,000, and he works for himself. He has not necessarily affiliate sites, but we'll call them authority or maybe like niche sites. It's, splitting hairs at some point, but he has sites where he's making money on ad revenue. So primarily like AdSense and stuff like that. Anyway, people were super interested in, hearing more from Ron, which I suspected. He's a cool guy. He's fun to talk to. And this is a two-parter, by the way. So Ron and I go deep into the weeds. I think a lot of people are going to like this episode. And I'm going to stop talking here in just a moment. But I want to let you know there's a part two that is Q&A. So in the video, I also asked people what they wanted to ask Ron. And we went through quite a few questions and a few tangents. Ron and I are kind of in a little bit of a mastermind group. At least there's two of us, so I guess two people are a group. He and I chat every couple of weeks, and we have been for something like 9 months, pretty long time. And we just kind of shoot the shit, kind of in this episode and in the Q&A episode coming out for episode 40. So keep your eye out for that. And be sure to check out Ron on 1 Hour Professor. He's not promoting anything. I'm not an affiliate or anything like that, but he has an awesome story. So that's why we're talking to him. So do go to 1 Hour Professor and check out his income reports. You can sort of, check out when he was first starting and see the struggles that he goes through and the slow growth. I mean, this is generally a grind, and you'll get that theme as we go through this conversation. So let's get to it. Welcome to this episode. I'm sitting here with my good friend, Ron. Ron, how you doing today?
Howdy, everyone. I am really good, Doug. How are you?
Awesome. Doing really well. Funny enough, it was like 78 degrees. I talk about the weather all the time, apparently. It was like 78 degrees on like Sunday, and then it snowed 3 inches yesterday, Monday.
He had the same thing, actually, in Illinois. Yeah. So It's like, we've had this crazy cold front. It's terrible outside right now. It's like 45 degrees. That's why it's so dark in here.
Yeah. So crazy. Well, anyway, moving on from the weather, who knows when people are going to watch this, but Ron is from the 1 Hour Professor. And Ron, for people that don't know who you are, can you just give like a little intro?
Sure. So I have been in this whole thing, this internet marketing area. It's probably been, I don't even know how many years it's been, Doug. I think about 6 years now. About 6 years or so. Background from that, though, I had basically in corporate America, I went to a digital marketing manager role, worked at a startup. I was pretty corporate marketing, digital marketing specifically. I have a degree, my MBA in marketing as well. So I was kind of like a corporate marketer, and I had worked through that. And then I ended up going as an entrepreneur. And when I did that, it was a tough few years there. Struggled through quite a bit, but ended up kind of finding my area in authority websites. I do some affiliate stuff, but kind of finding my niche there. And now I just own a portfolio of websites, and I've just been growing my business, year over year as much as I can.
Awesome. And for the people who maybe you're new to the channel or something like that, or new to the podcast, this is going to be broadcast in multiple areas. But I did a short feature on Ron because Ron, you're making roughly like $15,000 to $16,000+ per month, and that's been consistent. And you have been documenting your journey since roughly the end of 2014. So you have like multiple years of income reports where you critically look at, how your business was doing. And that's why we're talking here. It really, like, I haven't seen like a long-term journey like that where someone has done such a good job documenting it. So kudos for that.
And Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, he was like a big inspiration for that, of course, like most people. And I did it. And then now it's actually kind of weird. And I know we've talked about this on other calls and stuff, but it's kind of weird because, I'm getting to the point where I'm making that income and it's almost awkward to talk about. But in the beginning, it wasn't like that. It was easy to report, hey, I'm making negative $200 a month. But then when it's like making $15,000-$16,000 a month, it feels like you're gloating, which is uncomfortable. But it's like, I'm not gloating. I've been doing this forever. So yeah, I've told you this before. I've really documented it all at this point. I do the income reports. Other people see them. When they're on the email list, they'll see them, that sort of thing. But it actually has really helped me keep myself accountable, set goals every month, understand where my business is. Nothing ever falls off my radar because of those. So that's why I've continued to do them. But I've done them every single month with things that I've learned and insights just to help people along the way. So
cool. And for people that are interested, I'll put a link in the description so you can check out some of the income reports and stuff like that. Now, before we go on to some of the tactics and stuff like that, we're going to go deep. We actually have a bunch of questions from people in the YouTube audience that submitted questions. So thanks everyone for that. But number one, you and I talk pretty often, every couple of weeks, but I forgot that you got an MBA. I forgot you had one, that's cool. And I get to ask you a bunch of questions that I don't know. Cause normally we're just, shooting the shit a little bit here.
Yeah, usually about the business stuff. So yeah, you'll probably learn a few things. Yeah, I got my MBA and then I actually was going for my doctorate. My doctorate was going to be in higher education because I was just going to be a college professor full time. But then I kind of was like, I think it was about a year and a half. It was a 3-year program. I got a year and a half into it. And then we had to like give advice to a local business and stuff. I actually felt really uncomfortable with that because I wasn't fully invested in the I was just getting it so I could be a college professor. I wasn't fully invested. And I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur anyway. So I actually stopped getting my doctorate. And I was like, I'm just going to stop now and give this entrepreneur thing a full push. So there you go. Something you didn't know probably.
Cool. Yeah. I had no idea. So did you go straight from undergrad to grad school? And then, okay.
I went to give you a little background, I went to community college because I couldn't get into any colleges. So I wasn't like a great student. I wasn't. I wasn't terrible. I had in high school, I think a 2.8. Went to college. First, I went to community college to get my grade point up, got it up. Went to Western Michigan, go Broncos, for 3 semesters. Got kicked out because I like lecture style learning, not for me. So if anyone's out there like, oh, I'm not smart, you are. There's just certain things that you learn in certain ways. I wasn't good with that. So got kicked out, ended up going to school online 100% to finish up my bachelor's. And then I was like, well, I got my bachelor's, but everyone has that. So now let me go and try to get my master's. And then I went to Benedictine University in Illinois. That was like a hybrid program, online, offline. So I did that. And then I was getting my doctorate, and that was also a hybrid program as well. So yeah, but I did go from my bachelor's straight to my master's. I think it was probably like 3 or 4 months off there.
Okay.
And then my doctorate, I got my master's. I was like, that's it. But then I was like, a few years later, I was like, well, maybe I should just get my doctorate because I was liking the college professor thing. So I was like, maybe I should do that. And then, like I said, I stopped because I wanted to do this stuff. And luckily I did stop. It worked out. So
right. And then you mentioned you were like, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It's a struggle. What were some of your early ventures?
So my thing was I still don't know how to code. And I mean, you give me some HTML, I can kind of look at it, kind of understand what's going on if I'm looking at the page next to it, but I never understood how to code. I still don't. I always focused, one thing it was big with me is I always focused on websites, and I did that for one simple reason, the low startup cost. There was such a low startup cost, which is a huge benefit if anyone's out there and they're like, oh, I don't want to invest money, or they're cheap, like I was, admittedly, I had some money to invest, but I was just too scared to do it. When I was there, it was like, I didn't want to invest it. So I just would work on it myself, and I'd put all the hours in. But you can see those results, and websites have such a low startup cost. That was a huge deal to me, because it's like, who has 10, 20, 30, 50,000, 100,000 to franchise stuff? Some people do. I didn't. So that was my biggest thing. But my early ventures, man, because it's all website based, right? But I created so many different crappy websites. like this was not success. Like, there's so many different things. I remember there was one for Dragon Naturally Speaking software. I made a website all around that, because the commission, I think, was like, if you get a commission from an affiliate thing, it was like, I think it was like $60 or $80. It was pretty high. So I was like, I could do that. And I spent all this time and money in YouTube and ads and everything. That failed. The amount of failures, Doug, they're insurmountable. I had one, I still remember, it was picturesofbabiesinthewomb.com. That was a website I made. Pictures of babies in the womb was a high search volume, low competition. I was like, I could do this. Dumbest thing I ever did in my life. Like, I did it for I think it was like a week, and I was like, this is stupid. So yeah, there's no shortage of failures. We could spend the whole hour talking about failures if you wanted, but yeah, there's been a lot of those.
Maybe we could do that sometime, because I have a handful also.
It would be hard for me to even think of how many. Like, that's really, I would have to look at the domains that I bought over time and be like, that was dumb. Oh yeah, I forgot. Like, there's so many that I've had that I'm like, because as an entrepreneur, shiny object syndrome, right? And especially when you're in the beginning, because you're just trying to make anything work. So you're trying this, that, you don't know what's going to work. So I was totally everywhere, all over the place, trying to make stuff work. So
that's funny. I gotta ask, how are you going to get the pictures?
So there's your problem. So actually, it was because I had read somebody saying, basically, and this is totally not okay to do, but I was pretty young and new to it. They're like, if you just get the pictures and put them up on your website, you can put ads and make money. I was just taking I was taking the pictures illegally, essentially, just going to Google, like, ooh, like a baby in the womb at 2 months. I'm going to get that. And then I started researching. I was like, well, this isn't okay. Like, this is actually, I can get in a lot of trouble with copyrights for this. So at the time, I didn't know. That's really what it came down to. I was just naive, thought it was a good idea. I worked on it for a week and a half, and I was like, no, I just basically, once I found out the copyright stuff, I was like, this is not worth the risk of making $20 a month, maybe. So.
And for any of the listeners or viewers out there, maybe go check Instagram, because I bet maybe you're just ahead of your time, because I bet there's a couple Instagram handles out there of people just posting pictures of babies in the womb or something.
You would be surprised. Yeah, I'm sure that there's someone out there who took my brilliant idea. Yeah, but I don't know. That's just one of the bad examples. There was a lot. I tried to be straight with it, but that's the thing. I did Udemy. I did that. My 1 Hour Professor website. Originally, I was focused on trying to create courses. I tried to do and I did some consulting. So I did that. I did anything and everything I could possibly do to try to make it self-sustaining. That was the whole thing. So make my whole employment self-sustaining.
Right. Now, I want to jump into some of the specifics on sort of your approach to your portfolio and the kind of sites that you work on. There's a lot of questions that came in that are about content and link building and your keyword research and stuff like that. So we're going to kind of dive into that, some of the tactical stuff. We're going to meander around. That's kind of how my brain works. So can you tell me just sort of the kind of websites that you have sort of in general?
Yeah, at this point, so I've noticed a lot of people going into the model of the Amazon affiliate thing, which is good, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But to me, it scares the crap out of me. I have a website that is in that, and it's in the pet niche. We'll just call it that. So yeah, I have the pet niche, the employment niche. I'm trying to think of any other niches. I can't really give away one of the, I guess it would be a public service niche. I can't really give that away because it would be too specific. But in general, the websites that I build, I've done a Amazon affiliate, but that scares me because Amazon, they just did it this last week. I don't know if you heard, but fashion got lowered by X percentage. They keep dropping their commissions. And it just scares me. It really scares me because I feel like Amazon is so powerful. I will say, for anyone that's out there has an Amazon site that's doing pretty well, I think where the real money is there is creating physical products or digital products, if you can somehow monetize it and do that. And selling those on your website is a much more safer business model. But for me, most of my websites, I've kind of gone away from that whole Amazon affiliate model because it scares me. And I focus mostly on like informational, educational content type of websites, true authorities, like finding a niche of individuals or, around a passion or around a problem, giving them all the information that they need. And then usually monetization, I get, some Amazon affiliate monetization, some other affiliate monetization, and then mostly it's actually Google AdSense. I make quite a bit with Google AdSense, but yeah, there's some other affiliate partners there, but that's kind of the businesses that I focus on are informational, educational around a particular niche or topic to help people.
Got it. And going back to, one of our influences, Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income, basically he had, this site back in the day, Security Guard Training
HQ. Yeah, right. I think that's it. Yeah.
Like a public case study. I think it's still around. I think it's remained, relevant, but
yep.
That's a great example for people to have a look at. Would you agree, Ron?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how, well, even here's the thing, if you search Security Guard Training now, you're not just going to see his, but you're going to see all the people that copied him, which I never think people should copy each other because, I mean, there's always room for a niche, but like be original. But a lot of people copied him. So you'll see, if not his, then you're going to see other ones that are probably way better than his because he doesn't really work on that much anymore, I don't think. But yeah, it's still relevant. Yeah, it's definitely still relevant.
Cool. And I think, yeah, it's important to point out, like, there's many different business models, like you're saying. So I focus on Amazon typically. I also have info products, educational kind of stuff, and you focus on like ads. There's plenty of room for many different business models, and they could all work just fine. And they have pros and cons. So
yeah, and I will say too, if you really want to do well with an authority website or like any website, and Doug, I'm sure you'd agree, you maybe start with one monetization model, like let's just say Amazon, and then you do stacking, right? So then you stack on, okay, we got Amazon. Well, maybe we should throw them some AdSense on certain pages where it makes sense. Let's create a digital product. And then you get a website that goes from making, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 a month to 3, 4, 5. And that's how you focus on what you have and squeeze every drop of juice out of that lemon, right? Like get everything you can. And then when you're out of monetization ideas, that's the point where you say, maybe I should start something new. I think that's an important takeaway for anybody because that's a mistake I made a bunch of times. So I still make that mistake, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. So when you started, let's focus on just one site, maybe the major site as far as revenue, just to give a good example so we could focus on, one site here. Like when you started it, can you tell us about like how many keywords you had to start off with? Like what did you launch with? Your general plan of like link building, or did you even know all that stuff yet?
To be honest, I mean, I kind of knew it because of my corporate life, I guess you could say, because of digital marketing. But I will say most of what I learned, I don't feel like was from the job, or it definitely wasn't from school. I remember I had one class on digital marketing that actually still makes me mad. So it definitely wasn't from that. I mostly learned what I did through podcasts, honestly. I learned a ton through podcasts, and I usually prefer podcasts because working out or on a drive, commute, you can still listen. But yeah, my main website, just to be clear, the reason, if anybody doesn't know, I don't disclose this anymore because I did at one point and I got some copycats coming in, and I don't like that. So that's why I don't disclose the website. But my main website, that particular one, when I started it, it was actually just based on, and I'm not kidding when I say this, there was a need, my father had gotten remarried, and there was a need in the family for someone to be able to get a job, and they had certain things going on out externally that were influencing that. So I basically went out and I said, okay, well, what other websites are out there to help with this type of situation? That individual was having a really hard time. I couldn't find a really good resource. There was a few others out there, which there's a lesson in that. If it's already been done, most of the things you come up with will be done at some point already, but that doesn't mean they can't be better. So at that point in time, I basically looked and I saw what was out there. I was like, I really think I can make something better. And I legitimately at that time was building it to help that individual. And I was thinking maybe one day I'll make like $500 a month, maybe, I have no idea. And here I am now. I don't even know what that website probably pulls in like 10 to 12,000 a month or something like that. So, but yeah, like the keywords, I only knew what my competitors were doing, and I only knew to do what they were doing, but do it a little bit better. So it was like, I didn't really have a specific set of keywords. I kind of did something which I'm sure we'll talk about. Like I work in systems. That's like the way that I am. I probably should have been a project manager, to be honest with you. But that's kind of how my brain works, is like, how can we do something, create an outline for it or a template for it, and do that, and then get it to a certain quality standard, and then do that over and over and over and over and over. So I did that with the keywords. It was more like covering information for all 50 states of the United States with a certain content template to fully cover that information, move on. And then it was like, okay, we're done with that part of it. Let's go to this other area where we can do 50 more pages on specific information for all 50 states. Do that, and then let's move to this. So it was kind of like the systematic way of doing it. But I started with one, and I built that out. I built it better than what they were doing. I didn't really have like a list of keywords, so to speak. Like nowadays, I usually do. In that particular instance, though, I didn't, because I didn't really. I mean, I knew kind of here's my targets, but I didn't really have like, it was really to help someone. I mean, now I try to focus my stuff on really genuinely helping people, and usually good things happen from there. So,
right. And again, for people that are curious about an example, that Security Guard Training HQ is, it's sort of a template that you could follow that's really similar, where it's like there's regulations for 50 different states for security guards.
That's like a perfect example, Doug. That's like a perfect, like at security guard, in order to become a security guard in all 50 states, you probably have certain laws or whatever you have to follow. So that's what I would do, is I would say, okay, the security guard training in Arizona, let's focus on that. Security guard training in Alaska, let's focus, and do it that way. So that's how I started. And then that started to pick up steam, and then I did it more and more and more in different areas.
Yep. Perfect. And for like people that are familiar with the channel, usually focusing on like product related keywords, buyers keywords, these are not. These are generally like informational. So it's like purely informational. There's no products related to it. No really like, so there's no products, there's no buyers keywords. It's informational and it's ad revenue. So just want to point that out. Now, how much content is on the site now?
In terms of the big site that I have, I think it's at like 1,800 pages or something like that total. So to be clear, so I focused on that we'll call it database type of content, just for so people can understand, like 50 states database type thing. We'll call it that. So I did focus on that a lot, but I also do blogging, and that's where I do the keyword research, and I say, can these individuals get hired by this company, or can these individuals get training by, and I think of that too. So like, I'll do the keyword research. I'll find specific questions that are really important to that niche, that area. And then I will have blog posts answering those questions. So I also do blogging, but like total, like 1,800, I think, right around there. Yeah.
That's bananas, man. That's
It's crazy. But again, it's been, I've been doing it for 5 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, and when I outsource a ton, I'm sure we'll talk about that. I outsource a ton of my work. So like when I outsource, I really, really, really outsource. I'm not scared to spend thousands of dollars every month. Not that you have to do that in the beginning, but once you start making the money, I'm a huge, huge proponent of rolling back into the business to grow it. And that's how I've really grown larger, is by always rolling back profits or revenue into the business. So.
Yep. Totally. And just as a reference point, do you happen to remember how many posts or pieces of content that you like launched that site with?
At the time, I would say, I'm trying to think. I would think that it was probably around I'd say maybe about 150 total pages. But it was mostly focused on, again, that database type of, let's just use the security guard training as an example. It was mostly built around that. So let's just say about 150 pages is where I launched it. And then I started to see traffic, and I wasn't too concerned with monetization at the time, because that's always something you can figure. There's always a way to make money. There's always a way to make money. So like, I think around 150 is where I really did it. Nowadays, if you would ask me now what I would do, now that I know a lot more and I've been around for a while, I would probably say usually no less than like 25 pages or 25 posts is when I'd really launch something. But it depends on your strategy. Like if you're doing 25 informational pieces of content and you launch, you might start to get some traffic after about 6 months is when I think that the Google sandbox, you get out of it, so to speak. So you might take that, but then it's like, okay, now you have informational content for 25 articles. You don't have a way to make money. So it's like, like now you need to start doing affiliate stuff, so it depends on your strategy. There's a lot, but yeah, I would say like you want to have 25 well-written posts. Like don't just throw out 500 words of garbage. That's not going to do it for you. So.
About how long are the posts that you have generally?
When they're questions, I would say mostly, I usually, the rule of thumb is like when I assign my writers 75 to 1,000, 750, sorry, 750 to 1,000 words is typically on the low end. On the high end, I might go up to like 2,000, 2,250, like maybe 2,500. But I know some people are like, oh, publish the longer content and this, that, and the other. I don't believe that this is just a personal belief. I don't think that that's going to be sustainable. I think eventually Google is going to be like, hey, you have these 10,000, 20,000, word of things. Yeah, right now you might get some long tail, but I don't think that works because it's so hard to navigate. And like, I don't know. I mean, that's my thought. I know the argument of like, well, there's longer time on page and all this and that, but I don't personally believe in that. I would rather create a URL and a title tag and a page that specifically answers one query about one thing. If there's things that are really, really similar, then yes, tie them into that and maybe make a different like heading. But in general, around 750 to 1,000 is where I stay. So
right. And just I tend to agree with you on just in general, but I mean, let's say you or I have a problem. We type it into our phone or maybe use some kind of voice search. I don't want to read like 10,000 fucking words on like, I just want like the one sentence answer. So sometimes if you could say it in a few paragraphs, that's better. And sometimes people are in a hurry. Yeah.
And I think one caveat to that too, is that like some people think, well, because Google has their knowledge graph. So now it's like you search and you get an instant answer and they're like, well, they don't need to click through your website. Yes, they do. Because even though there's that knowledge graph there, and even though there's that one or two sentences that answer your question, they still want to know how you arrived at that question. Like as human beings, we're not just going to be like, oh, read it on the internet and it's true. Oh, well, some people do that. But most people are like, okay, I understand that you're saying that. Let me dive a little deeper to understand why that is and everything. So I think that's important to understand.
Right. And quick caveat. Ryan and I both know long form content is good, but sometimes short form content is the right length. So just to be clear before people get upset and tell me that 15 to 1800 words is the ideal length for ranking, sure, across a huge data set.
Yeah. And you also have to understand, my writers are answering a question, right? If you're doing a roundup review of 5 or 10 products even, you might not even have enough at 1,800 words. You know what I mean? Like it depends on what the content is and what the intent of the user is. That's the real key here. So like the way that my business works and my focus, my intent is going to be answering that one question or questions really closely related to it. And that's it. And then maybe I link to a few other things to get them, maybe on my email list or whatever else. But if you're on like a Amazon website, like that sort of thing, if you're doing a full product review, which like I said, I have a website like that. If I was doing that, then you want the longer content. So it really depends on the content and what the user's intent is. I think that's the key to that whole discussion. So
right on. So just quickly, sounds like you have some writers that help you out. Can you tell us a little bit about the writing team, how you approach that, and just in general what you're paying?
Yeah. So my writers, for the most part, I was super, super cheap when I started. And I actually, I hear people say like, oh, I usually will pay. I usually do it by word. And the reason why I do that when I pay my writers, I say, okay, by word. Actually, I'm sorry. I say by 100 words because it's just easier math. But I usually say that because I want my writers to understand that I want them to write what they need to write. I don't want to say, write an article between 500 to 750 words and I'll pay you X amount of dollars. I don't like doing that at a fixed cost because as a writer, they have no incentive to go past 500 and 501 words. They have no incentive. It's like, why would I spend more time doing this for my client when I have this other client who, they have no incentive. So I basically say, I will just pay you per 100 words. And usually that comes out to like, when I started at first, I had a writer that was like 50 cents per 100 words. Oh, and one other thing, I always get English-based people, no matter what, 100%. I never, ever get anyone from outside of the US because I've just found that, well, I guess you could make the argument like UK and all that would be fine, definitely. But their currency is higher than ours. So that's why I don't usually go with them. But like you want someone who is an English speaker, full-fledged native, and that's just what they do. I've just found when I've tried to do it with other countries that I've always had too many little issues, like little intricate things. Plus they don't always understand like the humor here and the current events. It's just, they're not in the culture. They're not immersed in the culture. So they don't fully get it, Right. But I always hire them. But yeah, like when I pay them, I usually will do it per 100 words. I started at like 50 cents, which was super, super cheap. And the lady was working way too cheap. And then I was up to like $1. And that was, believe it or not, like some people will tell you like, oh, you have to pay at least like $2, $3, $4 per 100 words. And I think that you probably do get some better content for that. Like for the most part, there is definitely that, but there's a point of diminishing return there. And the reality is, with a lot of content, specifically if you choose the right niche and it's not super competitive, you might be the only one writing it, or like one of the few writing it. So good enough or a little bit better than your competitor is better than anything else out there. Not easy to find those niches, but I think I kind of stumbled into one of those with my own affiliate site. So it's like when you're dealing with that, you don't need to pay super, super high. And especially if you're doing informational content like I do, you're not going to see a huge return on your content anyway. I mean, it's going to be like most of my content doesn't make a ton of money. The thing is, I just have a ton of content that makes a little bit of money, all those different pages. So like that's the difference between my business model. But if you're doing like an Amazon one, like that type of website, I could see paying more. Now I typically pay, and I usually go for people who have like a journalism type of degree. I look for teachers are really big. And now I'm okay, usually around $2 per 100 words, which is like 2 cents a word. That's typically what I'm willing to pay now, which I've found that the content is good enough. So I have that. And then I also, I'm trying to think of how many writers I have right now. I think it's 3 different writers right now, is what I have. And then I have a editor that actually manages all the content of all my websites, and she just gives it that final look through. And then if I ever have an issue, this is why I like that, because they all they don't report to that editor, but at the same time, she's kind of the catch-all. So if I see something wrong with my articles, I don't have to go to the writer. I have to go to the editor and say, hey, why did you miss this? And then they catch that flack, and then it spreads to all my writers and all my content. So they know, don't do that again. And then they're making sure that they keep the writers in check. And I tell them, if you have to talk to the writer, please talk to the writer. Tell them this. Like, that's okay. Like, I'm leaning on you. And if this content isn't good, I'm leaning on you. So this is on you, and this is going to be your problem if it's not good. So that whole hierarchy has worked for me. But when I first started, to go back to people who are probably earlier, I just hired a writer. They would submit content to me. I would review it. I would edit it. And I still teach at colleges and stuff. So like, I'm good at that whole part of editing and all that, because it's just like part of my profession. But I would edit it myself and then post it myself, but as I grew, I had someone post, and then I got an editor. Like, that took time for me. That was probably one of the most difficult things for me to let go of, is like putting an editor in place. I barely even see some of the content now. I mean it, like it just goes up there, and then my virtual assistant's like, hey, it's up. And then I'm looking at it, and I'm looking, if I see anything wrong, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And then I'll go back. But I wasn't like that before, So,
well, how did you, I get this question often. So how did you like let go of that control?
I know that I'm not great at everything. I think I'm pretty decent / good at a lot of things, but I'm not great at everything. And it just comes down to the fact that like, I wasn't a journalism major, like I'm a good writer. I had to be. I mean, I almost did like a whole thesis and my doctorate program and all that. I'm a good writer, but I understand that there's people who are better at it than me. I understand that there's people who are way more passionate about it, and writing and creating content in general takes forever. It's a very long, it just takes time. I didn't like spending my time doing that. It's not that I couldn't do it, but it was like, okay, I could spend all my time doing this, or I can buy back some of my time and have someone else do it. And then I can oversee the whole direction of the website and really where we're going. That was like a really, really big thing to me. And like one of the things I always say to people who are like hesitant to outsource, at the end of days, when you were on your deathbed, right? Hypothetically, you're sitting there. Do you think that you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have edited more articles, like that kind of thing? Or like, I mean, that's dramatic, but the reality is every hour that you buy back of your own time by investing in outsourcing is another hour you get to actually live and enjoy and have for yourself, and like, it may sound cheesy or whatever, but that's how I think. Like if it comes down to time, anything that takes me a lot of time, outsource as quick as I can, because I know that time is the one thing none of us can ever get back. You can never do it. So
yeah, it's, I mean, I was going to say like that once I started letting go, like things are, the editor is going to do good enough.
Yep.
Like if you really want to scale, and I mean, there's only so many hours that each of us has. So you have to do you have to leverage it somewhere. And like you said, once you hit a point that you could reinvest, you could buy back some of that time and do more visionary kind of stuff where you're like doing things to grow instead of just like,
and you're implementing strategies. You're no longer in the weeds. You're not working on your or like in your business. You're working on your business. Like you're above. You're overseeing it. You have people doing certain things. You're making sure those go well. But you're also able to do forward thinking. You're thinking about what's the next content. What affiliates? What direction do I want to go? That was a big thing. And I'll say, like in the beginning too, just to bring it back to my past a little bit. When I started this, I had a full-time job. Personally, it was as a marketing manager, and I started it as a passion project with a full-time job. I think that anybody who does it, unless they have a ton of money saved up, I think if they just like leave their job and just go all for it, I personally found that crazy because I like taking calculated risks, and for me, I couldn't invest a ton of money into it in the beginning, but I was short on time. But what I could do is I could manage a writer who could create the content. Then I could edit it. Then I could put it up. And I had the money still coming in to where I could afford to do all that, and that was a tough transition to get away from because I had like the golden parachute, making like over 100K, like that whole thing. Everything was really, really great. But now I make more than I ever could have made, and I work from home, and I get to decide everything I want to do, which is way. I'd do this even if I was making less. Well, I did do it when I was making less. I took a huge risk. So yeah.
Totally. And you know what? I forgot to ask this. How long, I guess, when did you quit your full-time job as the digital marketer?
So I was a digital marketer, I think probably from when I really, really focused on this website. I think it took about 7 or 8 months until my first website really, really took off. And by really took off, like, don't get like confused by that. Like when I say really took off, I'm talking it made like $300 to $400 a month. Like that was really taking off to me. And the reason for that was simple. It had momentum. That was my biggest thing. And I was like dying to leave my corporate job. I was dying. I like my workers or my coworkers, my boss wasn't terrible. Like at times I get annoyed, but who doesn't at their boss, but they weren't terrible. It was just, I didn't like the commute killed me, like all these different things. So for me, it was like, I don't know, I think it was like 7 or 8 months or so. And my website started to show momentum, started to make a little bit of money. And I was like, I can do this. And then I just like, I have a condo in the city. I rented that out. I went to like a crappy apartment in the suburbs. Like I downsized big time. I was paying for parking, and this is in Chicago, which is, it's not like the most expensive place, but it's pretty expensive. So I had all that stuff. I moved to the suburbs. I like no more cable. Like I cut all ties with everything. And I had, I don't know what, I think I had like 10 or 15,000 saved up total.
Okay.
And I was just like, I'm going for it. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going for it. So,
okay. Yeah. I was like, dude, if you had a 6-figure job and then you're making $300 or $400 a month, like that's bananas. But you had other stuff. You downsized. You did some other things. All right.
Yeah. And I will say too, I had, because I've been teaching for all this time, right? So like I still, and I'm very blessed, I still have some of my teaching gigs just as an adjunct professor, like a part-time, take on courses when you can. I still have some of that. So like at the time I had it, and that was, I did that and a little bit of consulting to survive. It was like in the red every month, or like even every month, but I was just working as hard as I possibly could on these websites. So, or on the website, I should say at the time. So.
Right. Now, link building. So a ton of questions on link building. Well, actually, let me just ask you this, because some people say link building is a total waste of time. They don't even do it. They maybe wait for some natural links. What do you think about links?
I think that's bananas. No, to say that, to say link building doesn't matter at all, in my personal opinion and experience, this isn't just opinion. This is something that I've lived. Link building will get you there faster, I guess is what you could say. Like, yes, you can create a ton of content. And if you use the KGR, the keyword golden ratio, you will get rankings, you will get up there. And yes, you will. But even though you're getting served for those relevant results, and even though you may be getting, views on your website, what are the chances of that person's a webmaster? What are the person that webmaster is going to link to you? Not very high. So like some people say, oh, I don't do link building. I will say, and Doug, you know a lot about the history, I think I've overdone link building at the past at times, a little too hard. And we could talk about that later or whatever, but for the most part, when it comes to link building, I personally feel like it's an absolute necessity. You don't have to go crazy on it, but like after like 6 months, you're going to find if you are just creating content, you're going to be writing to nothing and you're not going to see much. Like I have a website right now that I'm working on. We have, I'm trying to think, I think it's about 80 articles, 90 articles right now. I am getting maybe one visit a day, maybe. And it's been about 3 months. But I know that that's okay because I'm going to do link building and I'm going to kind of build it up. So I think link building is a requirement personally. I think that you have to at least do some link building in order to be really successful. That's how I feel.
Cool. And I think because we have so many questions on that, we may hold off on some of the link building details because I think we could actually someone just said, just talk about link building all day in one of the comments. That was Josh. But basically I tend to agree with you. You can get away with not building links, but if you build links, it's just like putting, gas on the fire
it really is.
Or some other highly flammable thing that's like useful. Like I think people like the idea because they don't know how to do it, or it seems scary, or they want to do less work. Right.
It's like sales, because it's like, link building there, if you get a 1 to 3% conversion, so that means every 100 targets, you get 1 to 3 of them to link back to you. That's pretty average decent. I mean, that's not completely terrible. Like, and that number, it's like, can you sit there and deal with all that rejection over and over and over? Like really good people are getting 7 to 10%, but like, that's not, 1 out of every 10 isn't very encouraging, it's tough. So like, I think a lot of people don't want to do it because it's just full of rejection. It's not fun. I love it. I don't know why, and I'm glad I love it. I don't even know why it makes me tick, but I love it because I think it's because I know all my competitors aren't doing it. They're not focused on it, and they don't really focus on it enough. They don't think it's important enough. And I can tell you definitively, 1000%, it is extremely important, because I have websites where I don't do it and nothing's happening, and then I start doing it, and then guess what? All my rankings start climbing. It always happens, always. And that goes for Amazon websites or Amazon affiliate websites. That goes for informational websites, any type of website. It always is going to help because it just gives you more authority. That's all it does. So
yes. And we can, like I said, we can go on and on and on and on. But just for the main site that we've been talking about, do you have an idea like how many referring domains are pointing to it, just to give people an idea the craziness that is going inside?
I'm going to have to look on Ahrefs actually for that one.
That's all right.
I've got it up here right now. So at this point, I have 419 referring domains to that one. So that's a total. But I will say, and I don't know anyone else who's like maybe a little bit more advanced, it's like watching this, I've been getting more spam links lately. So like of those, maybe 350 are like valid. I don't know why. It seems like there's like been an influx across all my websites that more people have been doing that. So like probably valid, like 350, 360 domains total. But that website, I did a decent amount of link building in the beginning. I haven't really done much link building other than that, because in terms of the internet, I'm basically the number one result for that particular like term and that particular niche. I don't really need to keep doing the link building because a lot of my content is ranking. So now I am getting those links organically, which is like the coolest feeling in the world, because you're just like, oh my gosh, I just got a link. Like I get links from like a government website. All of a sudden it's like, well, hello there, like, thank you. Like, that's awesome. So nowadays I don't really do much for that one, but it's already reached that top level. When you're at a website in the beginning and you're not even close to that top level, you absolutely have to do link building, in my personal opinion. So.
Do you know how many, I don't know if you'll remember this, but do you know how many referring domains or links you got before you hit that sort of critical mass where like now you are the authority and people will link to your site because you have the best information?
So I had a very strange growth trajectory with this particular website. To backtrack just a little bit, when I created this website, I started to get a little bit of organic traffic without doing any link building. So it does work. In the beginning, I wasn't doing any. What ended up happening was this particular resource, this particular website, it actually went very, very, very viral on Facebook. And it's, to be clear, it's a resource. This is an informational resource. This wasn't like, 9 ways to do this. Number 6 will surprise you. It wasn't those types of posts. It was like a database type of resource helping people with some particular information. It went viral on Facebook like crazy. And what ended up happening was, this like shut down my server a few times. Like it was like a big deal. Like I was getting 200-300 people on at every second of the website, which was crazy. But the whole thing was that basically went up and then it went down because that's what viral stuff does. And then after that is when I thought about link building, because it was like, okay, it made all that money. It's a great resource. Now some people know about it, but I need to make this stick. How can I make it stick? And I already knew about link building, but I wasn't doing it. Like most people don't want to do it. And I was like, I'm just not going to. But then at that point, I was like, man, this can really earn some decent money if I figure this out. So then I started to do link building. So at that point, I would say, I think I probably only got like maybe 30 to 50 links total, somewhere in that range, for it to really be like start, like critical mass solidifying in the search results. And then I've just been adding so much content onto it every month or whatever for so long now, that it like I kept ranking for more and more, and then more links kept coming in, and now it's just getting more and more and more authoritative, like naturally. I don't even really have to do much anymore. So
awesome. Very cool. So quick summary, you published some content, got a little bit of traffic, the site went viral, and then you were like, while the traffic went away, I need to build some links. And then you got started with your own campaigns, right?
Yeah, that's when I really dove into link building, and thank God I did, because it was getting a little bit of traction, and it went like up like crazy because of viral, and then it went down like crazy, and then it was like, okay, I'm right back to where I was. Now what? And then I started to build some links thinking, well, I guess I could try to make some more traffic come this way. And at that point is when I started to see that's like my websites, and you've seen graphs, they're slow rise. They're not like, that was an anomaly. Not all my websites, actually none of my other websites have ever done that since. It was just this really random occurrence. So like for the most part, it's a slow rise. It's a steady, slow growth, growth graph that's just going up, up, up slowly, right? Mm-hmm. That's the key. So
got it. Now, one thing, so Ron, I see we're at the top of the hour. Can you go a few minutes longer, or do we need to cut this off?
You can keep me as long as you want, Doug. Awesome. I'm here. I mean it. You can, as long as you want. I don't care. That's fine.
All right, cool. I'm going to finish a couple questions here on the link building, and then I think we may take a quick break, a pause, and then maybe save it for round 2 in a few minutes. So, okay. So for you got into link building. What's maybe give like 1 or 2 sort of strategies that you do for link building? You're great at setting up systems, and I've observed and heard you talk about like the things that you set up, and it is definitely like project management, and
it's a system.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So what are you doing?
So usually, okay, so when it comes to link building, like me personally, I'm a big fan of saying test different link building, because I don't think and this is after being in quite a few different niches, I don't think that there's one link building tactic that works really, really well across every niche. Like if you're in the finance niche and you're trying to do guest blog posting, good luck. You better have a budget because they're going to ask you for hundreds of dollars every single guest post, because that's finance and that's what they do in that. Mommy bloggers, same thing. Like some of them get really expensive with that. So like I'm a big fan of testing different types and really seeing. And when I say testing different types, like I don't mean reaching out to 10 or 15 people and seeing if it works. And then if it doesn't, saying, nope, it's no good, I'm out of here. I'm talking about reaching out to like maybe 200 to 300 total targets, trying a particular, link building tactic. And then if that doesn't work at that point, you have a decent data sample size, then saying, okay, that didn't work. Let me try this other one. Because usually in all niches, I feel like you can find one tactic that works better than most in all niches. There's going to be one tactic that works better than most. But me personally, what do I do now at this point? And I've done a lot of different tactics, but I think at this point, what I really focus on, I do a lot of guest posting now because I think I found it, I've systematized it and made it kind of easy to be able, I have someone doing all the pre-outreach activities, the commenting on blogs, the replying to emails, that sort of thing, getting them warmed up, and then they kind of go in and pitch them. So I do that a lot. And then I also Haro, however you want to pronounce it, help a reporter out. That's one of the reasons why I've kept, if anyone's wondering, why do you still teach? One of the reasons I kept that is because I think when people hear professor, they immediately it garnishes, it just gains some respect immediately. Like it has like that title, Mm-hmm. So I do Haro because I can reach out to them and I'm a college professor. So whoop-de-doo, it's a college professor. So I'm more inclined to get links. So that actually works relatively well for me. I've done that. But like what link building tactics have I done? I mean, anything that you're going to read about, I've probably done it. I don't do black hat stuff so much. I stay away from that. But like when it came to like, I don't know, just doing resource page link building, I've done that. I've done like blog commenting back in the day. I would never waste my time now, but back in the day I did that. I've done, and we've talked about this. This is like an advanced tactic of something that I did that worked really well on one website and I think actually hurt me on the other website, mm-hmm. is what I call database link building, going back to the word database, which apparently I just love that word. It was the idea of creating let's just say a directory of sorts on your website. So security guard training, I'm just going to use an example because we've been talking about it. Maybe saying, hey, I'm going to create a directory of all the security guard training schools. I don't even know if that's a thing. Security guard training schools across all 50 states. You create that directory and then you basically reach out to them and say, hey, you've been listed on my website. Would you be willing to link back to me? Like that type of outreach. That worked really well for me across two different websites. And one website still to this day ranks pretty well. The other website, this is like a cautionary tale. I did that super hard. I was getting an insane amount of links. I remember when we were talking about it, it was like, I'm talking 5 to 10 links a day. It was like crazy how well it was working. But Google kind of, I think at that point, it's kind of categorized that website as a directory because I think I went a little too big with that link building project and it actually hurt that website. And I put a lot of content on the website and it was a blow. And this wasn't that long ago. This was probably, a couple months, 3 months ago. So I still make mistakes. But at that time it hit me and I'm still trying to figure out how to finagle and make it like get fixed. But that was like a big thing that I did that I don't think anything was, or many other people were doing. And it was working really well, but use with caution. Like I don't know the right answer to that because it worked great on one website that was kind of smaller. I did it on another website that was supposed to be bigger and I think it actually worked against me. So. Gotcha.
Cool. And just quick summary. So you would you've done a variety of stuff, but generally your go-to is like just guest posting, like standard, do some networking. At this point, yeah, because the websites and the niches that I'm working on, guest posting is great in those particular niches. I'm going to give away one other one that I remember. I heard this on a podcast and it's a pretty interesting one. This is one of my secret ones that I'll tell everyone. So this is the juicy stuff. If you go to Flickr, right? One of the things when people are looking for images, usually they go to Flickr and they want to see a Creative Commons where it can be shared in the public domain, right? They want to do that. So this individual who was on, and I don't remember who this was. I would give him credit. This was not mine. I honestly cannot tell you who this was, but I thought it was pretty interesting. What he would do is he would actually take pictures himself and then he would put them onto Flickr,
tag them correctly and everything, and then say, yeah, you can use this, but make sure if you do that you give attribution to this particular website, right? That was his whole strategy. I did a variation of that to where I basically went out and I would never take images from Shutterstock and then just put them up there because that's totally illegal, copyright issues. But I would find ways to get content that was in the public domain that was technically free in other places, put it up onto Flickr and say, yes, you can use that, but you have to link back to my website. That I won't say that it worked super well, but I did get some pretty high authority links from that because people were just looking for the images. So it worked, but it should never be a primary. But yeah, nowadays I do mostly guest posting. Almost exclusively guest posting. I still do where I present my websites to people and I say, hey, this could be a helpful resource to your audience. What do you think? And that's not guest posting. That's kind of just shotgun skyscraper, just kind of saying, hey, this is a thing. But yeah, for the most part, I still do guest posting. I think would probably be my number one at this point. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And quick note, I can't remember. I've heard of that strategy, and actually, I use Flickr images as well, Creative Commons, of course. And I've gotten emails where people were like, "Hey, you didn't attribute this properly. You should link to the website or whatever." Which, the thing is, you're right. You will get some links, but I think the magic of that is you have to go back and do the reverse image lookup to find out who's using it, and then do the outreach. So
yeah, if you really wanted to go hard on it, yes, absolutely. With me, I literally, and even now I'm building a website. I'm doing this and I'm getting content that it's images, but it's not like I'm going out with a camera and taking really nice pictures. These are images that anybody can get, but I'm getting them in a way that's kind of creative. I'm putting them up there. I'm actually not doing that outreach and reverse image lookup and saying that. I'm just putting it up there and hoping. And so far with this website, I haven't gotten any, but I did it with another website and I got some. But if you really wanted to go hard with it, yes, you'd probably want to do the reverse Google image search. But again, I don't know that that's the best one out there, but it's something to consider, I don't think that there is one link tactic that's great for all websites at all times. I think I run campaigns, I'm okay, let's do, for an example, let's do an infographic and create that. And then I'll reach to these 100 targets. And then I'll move on to a different campaign. Okay, now let's try this. Okay, now let's try, and I'll keep trying until I find something that seems to work. And then I'll really try to hammer it. So,
got it. Cool. And I think if people have other link building questions, you could, leave comments and let me know, let Ron and I know, and we could dive into it a little deeper. I think what we could do, I'm going to hit a couple of the questions that people asked, some of which we've already gone through. But I'm just going to kind of go through. So we have Echo is asking, what type of content was most popular in Google rankings in your audience? And by that, I mean, which type of articles ranked best?
Yeah. So, going back to what I had said, I'd probably say the question stuff in these informational authoritative type websites that I create, right? For me, it was informational content type of stuff. Yeah, that's what I'd have to say, the answer to that one for me in my situation. So
cool. And next is from Beauty Reporters. There's a series of questions which goes through a lot of stuff. So I guess you could sort of actually, how many sites do you have in your portfolio, as we would call it?
That I'm actively working on at this point. That I'm actively working on 2, but total sites. Well, actually, I guess I should say 3 because my big site is still technically working on. But I have about I'd say 5, no 6. I'd say 6 that I'm actively working on or have writers for. Let's put it that way. So there's 6 of them that are getting it, but I'm personally focused on 2. But I have other people handling the other ones that I still have.
Got it. And then how much revenue is coming from we'll call it the main site?
That's probably at this point, I figured this out the other day. I think it's 60 to 65% roughly. Every month is coming from that. In terms of the actual revenue, I think it's it's on my income reports. But it's I don't know total. I think it's, okay. I don't know what it comes down to.
The percentage is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Percent. Yeah. So somewhere in there.
Okay, cool. Okay. Now So you have six sites total. You're actively working on two. You make 65% of it from one main site. And this is my question, actually, now that we went down this road. How much time would you say you spend each month on that main site, bringing in roughly 13,000
bringing in
per
most
month?
of my revenue. So, and I had to look because as we're talking about this, so last month, March of 2019, this is why I like my income reports, by the way. March of 2019, it actually brought in $17,006.79. That's one. But if you're asking how much time I spent on that, or I spent on that website, it's shameful how little time I spend on it. And I really mean that. I spend the least amount of time on that website than I do any of my others, without a doubt. One caveat to that, I've recently been going back. We've talked about this. I've recently been going back and revising some articles on that website because I felt like some of the articles were low, or they were old. They were losing ranking a little bit. So I've revised them to bring them back up, and that works so well, by the way. If you're an individual facing that, like some of these articles were 2 years old, never touched them. So I've been doing that. But yeah, that's most of it. But like the amount of time that I spend, honestly, like the 4-hour work week is a real thing with that website. Like maybe even less than 4 hours a week. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like it's actually shocking how little. But like, it's taken me a long time to get there, and I built out a lot of stuff along the way. And I always try to build stuff to where I build it once, it's there, and it's good. I love evergreen content. I don't like having to update all the time. So that's how I run my business, and that's worked. So.
Okay. And I knew you were going to answer that, even though we've never talked about it before, but that is kind of how it goes. So, you and I are both busybodies as well, right? So we have good work ethic, and we couldn't, like, even if we were only spending 3 or 4 hours on like our main site, we would still like make up other projects, which we do in other sites, and end up wasting 80% of our time on some other bullshit, most likely. When we could be, doing something fun, Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and this is the truth, like, because I remember people were asking how I stay. I want to go back to the questions, because I remember some of the questions that were listed were, how did I stay motivated when I was with an employer and I seriously was working 80, 90 hours a week between all the different things? Because you got to remember, I had a full-time job. I was teaching at 2 different colleges, and I was getting my doctorate at one point while I was doing this. Don't ever make excuses. Like that is brutal. That is brutal for anyone. Like I seriously got 6 hours of sleep a night. But how did I stay motivated? It was really simple. At that point, when I was at a full-time job, I would have to commute an hour to work every day, commute back an hour, and I would have to deal with a boss telling me what I had to do. It just irked me because I was like, I was really into marketing and I knew what I wanted to do, and I really wanted to help people and make a difference. I wasn't doing that at my job. So it was like that frustration, like when I'd have a bad day at work, it was the best day for my website, because I'd go home and I would work so hard for like 6 hours. I didn't have a family or anything either. Like now I'm married, but I don't have kids yet. So that's a benefit. But like I always stuck by the thing of you have to do at least 1 hour a day of work, always, Monday through Sunday, at least 1 hour a day. And usually you find out that on the weekends you spend more time. But like if you don't have that drive and that passion, like it's going to be hard to succeed. So when I started, it was that. And then how do I still stay motivated now? It's easy. I don't like, obviously, like the money's great and it's like awesome. Like it's crazy. Even I never, ever would have thought that I got to where I am right now. But like, I don't know. I like building businesses. Like I'm confident that if I won the lottery tomorrow and won $100 million, yes, I'd travel and give away money, blah, blah, blah. But when I got done with all that and I came back to reality, I'm confident I would build a website that wasn't focused on monetizing anything and just give people information to help them. That's what I would do, because that's just what I enjoy doing. I like growing a business. I like thinking of a business in my head, growing it, and then knowing, it gets 150, 200,000 views a month. That's super cool to me. Just that right there. So yeah, but that's how I stay motivated now. It's like money isn't that much of an issue. And I had a crisis when I started to make, I think it was 15,000 a month when I was hitting that in revenue. That was a crisis for me. I don't know if you ever had that, Doug, but like for me, that was really tough, because it was like I hit my goal and I was like, now I have the money that I was supposed to be happy with. And I had that money and it was like, cool. But I was like, well, now what? Like that was like the thing. It was like, now what? I hit my goal. And I'm like, well, I guess 20,000 a month, but who really cared? Like it wasn't about the money anymore. So I just have that drive of building things, and I enjoy building bigger and bigger and bigger. Like I don't have a plan for a grand exit or anything. It's just what I like doing.
What you do. It's what you do. Yeah. I haven't had exactly the same crisis, but I've had other crises.
Yeah. Well,
similar. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to go through a couple of the questions from beauty reporters who sent it in, and I just kept asking questions before I got to hers or his. But how many articles do you publish each month across all your sites? We'll just say, if you have that kind of stat.
Across all my sites is a tough one. That you're probably looking at across all sites right now, I'd say probably around 50 to 60 across all websites. All websites. Usually, like my main website, the rule of thumb I had since like forever has been 3 every single week. That was like what I did. So about 12 a month. That was like what I did and done. And I don't know if there's truth to the fact that like Google likes it if you keep submitting content and your website's active. I don't know if that's true or not. I took it like, Google probably wants me to keep updating stuff. So, hey, I'll just do that. But yeah, like 12 a month there. But like some of the websites, like the website I'm building right now, it's 10 a week, So it just depends on where the website is in its life, the whole trajectory of it. So,
right. And I've gone through periods where I publish, 60 articles a month for several months and then don't publish anything for like multiple years. And it's fine. So, and you, this person also asked about how many words each article. So roughly about 1,000, but if it needs to be longer or shorter, it will be. Is that right?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the content. Like to answer a question, 750 to 1,000, I think is pretty reasonable. But if you're writing a review type thing, it could be 2,000, 25. It just depends on what the content is and what the user's intent is. Do they need something that's really, really in depth? Really think about it. If you research it, do you need that? So it just depends.
Keyword research. How do you approach it?
I use a few different strategies. So there's 2 different things that I do. First off, I will use, have you ever heard of Keyword Shitter before?
Yeah. I've heard of that one.
It's the best name ever. I think it's hilarious. But that website, I love it because that usually gets like the Google autocomplete like responses into there. So I always use like who, what, when, where, why, how. So how do something related to your niche? Who does something related to your niche? Like I always do who, what, when, where, why, how. And I start with that. And I think in terms of that, and if you just press submit there, you'll get a bunch of ideas. Once I have that, I'll then go to Ahrefs. I always use them, and I'll plug them into there to see the competition. I personally, they base their competition strictly off of links, like 100%. They've said that, and I don't think that their competition metric is all that great. So I'll put it in there, but I'll also put it into Longtail Pro, or maybe it's Platinum now. That's like an old school keyword tool that like. A lot of people use, but like I know there's a bunch of them out there, like keyword.io, I think is one. There's a ton of them out there, but I basically will put them into both. I'll put them in a spreadsheet, and I'll put the results of Ahrefs in one, and I'll put the results of Longtail Pro in the other. And I do that because I want to see a scope of both of them next to each other. Because I found sometimes like Ahrefs won't even say, it'll say like, oh, it doesn't even have any search volume. Well, yes, it does. It has 80 a month. And I go for that, by the way, if anyone's wondering, I go for that low stuff. I'm okay with 20 to 30 searches a month on one of those tools, because usually 20 to 30 searches a month is actually 3 or 4 times that, because there's different variations of that question. So I do that keyword research using those. And then I'll also do, when my website is getting authoritative and it's starting to do well, I'll then look at my competitors, my poor competitors, and I'll basically look at what they've done. If they're doing something that I don't have at that point, and I know that my website's frankly like more authoritative and better than theirs, I'll look at that. I'll look at that article, see what they write something way better, and then I usually rank above them. So, but that's like a secondary thing. Like in the beginning, I usually will start with, Keyword Shitter and doing it that way. So.
Very good. Okay, one more question before we finish up for now. So this is, again, from Beauty, whoever here. What's the number one reason that caused your income to increase so fast? And I looked at it the other day. So I'm going to generally summarize, but like 2014, you showed a loss of $1,500. I think the next year, 2015, you made like 6,000. The following year, I'm losing track of years, but we'll say 2017, it's like 34,000. And then it was 70,000. And then it was about 160, something like that. So you're showing like, in my opinion,
it's like 100% almost every year.
So like I see like those are huge amounts, but I'm also like, well, you put in so much work and effort. And I know the struggle. I know that trajectory. So I know that didn't feel fast. 6 years doesn't feel fast. I'll let everyone know that even though like those are big year over year jumps, especially the 5,000 to the 30 whatever K.
Yeah, it was 34,000. Yeah, I'm looking at my numbers right now.
Okay,
so
cool.
It went from 5,800 to 34,000 basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So what caused it to increase so fast? If you have to give one thing.
Before I give one thing, I will say for anybody reading it or listening to this, it wasn't fast. It was brutally slow. 2004. I mean, I worked a total of 16 months, to hit. I mean, if you add it all up, $3,500. Like that's how much I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and I worked. But what was it that made it grow exponentially, if you will, from there, or really grow from there? Understanding that's kind of when my main website started to get a lot of traction. And then I looked at it and I just talked like first thing I said in this call is all about like revenue stacking, like stacking different models to make more money. For me, it was, okay, my website's starting to make it. What else can I do to get more juice out of the lemon? Like what else can I add to my website to make more money? So I added this. And then all of a sudden my revenue goes up $300 a month. And then I added this, and then it goes up 500. And then I added, like it was just stacking more onto it, looking at not just making money through, like with Amazon affiliates, not just making money there, but maybe finding other affiliates, maybe creating an info product, maybe creating a physical product, once you have a website that's doing well and has the authority and it's starting to rank and is like pretty solidified as like a decent competitor, try to make it better and then try to add other monetization strategies that stack. And when you do that, that's when the real magic happens. I would say that was the biggest thing because my main website still makes the most amount of money, but that main website has also been diversified across so many different channels to make all that money, and it just keeps revenue stacking on itself. So I think that would probably be the biggest thing. And I keep making more websites too. I mean, that helps. But my main one that's the biggest thing.
Yes. And I'll point out one thing. I know we can't go in depth really at all, but there are always opportunities. 1 week ago when you and I were talking, you told me about a cool new opportunity, another revenue stacking opportunity that you had no clue existed. Yep. In my opinion.
And that's after like what, 4 years or 5 years, like that came out of nowhere. Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
And it's not like you haven't been looking for stuff, right?
No, and like it was something I didn't think of. I got an email from someone and then I thought, hey, I should probably look into this. And then I come to find out that I'll just make it vague, but if I generate a phone call to a specific thing, and this phone call lasts for, I think it's like 90 seconds or 120 seconds, I make $400. That's off of one phone call. Never even thought about it. It wasn't something I thought about. It just kind of happened. And you always have to be, if you have a website that's doing relatively well, getting some traffic, you have to always look into new ways to monetize it and things to add on to it, right? That was what just happened. And like I said, that was after 4 years. And I was totally like, I didn't even know this was a thing, So it happens. It just happened. You just always have to keep your eyes open. So
right. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Ron. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
You can find me, because I don't disclose most of my websites. The best place to probably find me is just if you go to onehourprofessor.com. You can always find me there, get a hold of me there. And my income reports, I have abbreviations for all my websites, but you can follow along every month. You should be able to understand kind of what I've been doing. And I always include like lessons learned, things to avoid. Like you'll see there are certain months that income dips. I talk about what that was. And I always document everything. So yeah, onehourprofessor.com.
Very cool. Thanks a lot. And we're going to bring you back, answer some questions probably in the next episode here coming up. So really do appreciate it, Ron. And everyone check Ron out over at 1 Hour Professor. So as you heard, Ron is an all-around badass, and it was awesome to have him on the show. Definitely check out episode 40 coming up, where we answer questions. So Ron answers from his perspective, and it's called the Doug Show, so I end up putting in my 2 cents as well, but I think you'll find it helpful. And if you asked one of those questions over on the YouTube side, you will get a shout out. So that's kind of cool. Definitely have a listen. If you're new to the Doug Show, welcome. I'm really glad to have you. And I encourage you to subscribe to this episode. Actually, subscribe to the whole show so that you can get the next episode. And I think if you liked what you heard from Ron in our conversation today, you'll probably like a lot of the other episodes. There are several success stories. People have different approaches, and I encourage you to have a listen. Again, it's great to have you on. If you like video too, check out YouTube. I have a ton of YouTube videos, a lot of tutorials, a lot of Q&A. There's a lot of live streams. Apparently I can't talk today. I need a little bit more caffeine, but I am digressing, and I see that this episode is pushing 1 hour and 15 minutes. So thanks, Ron, for jamming with me, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you.